It's at the headers, the collector. I know for sure the non-O2 side, which is the driver side, is leaking. I don't know about the passenger side. I don't think it's leaking, but I'm going to fix them both the same way to make sure it seals up. My concern is just having this thing tuned, the O2 sensor getting a false read because there's a header leak. It's, you know, inches away from where the O2 sensor is. I think the root of the problem is that I had this whole exhaust system off. I changed the mufflers, and just everything is not in the same spot that it was, and I can't get the head pipes square to the bottom of the collector on the header. These are shorty headers. So the guy that put the exhaust on for me, he bent this up and then welded it to the kit. This was a Flowmaster kit at the opening here, so at the pipe. So again, I know I'm not square on this side to the collector. I can see it, and then this is the O2 side. So here's the O2 sensor here, and then here's the collector. Again, if there's any air leak here, I'm not getting a true accurate reading there. So the plan is to basically cut about right here, cut out a section, and put those flex pieces in there. And then of course, put new gaskets in on the collectors. Here are the collector gaskets. Again, they're a copper, solid copper like this. This is the driver side, this is the passenger side, this is the O2 sensor side, this is the driver side. So you can see here my suspicions were correct. Right there was the exhaust leak. So I'm still going to put in both sides of this exhaust system those flex pieces so that there won't be any issues at all, so that everything can kind of align itself to where it needs to seal off. Between these two marks here and here is 7 1/4. So I'm going to cut out 7 1/4 off of the head pipe. To cut the other side off, I took the head pipe, put it in a vise, and did it on the bench. It's a lot easier. So I marked both the tailpipe and the head pipe here every 1/2 inch, just so I can tell how far the slip joint is on. So I'm at the number 3 here, so I have 1.5 inches in here. So check the head pipe slipped in here to the flex joint. You can see it's very flexible. So I'm going to tighten up on the collector first, let it find its home, and then wherever it needs to be as far as different, you know, not in alignment with this pipe, the flex joint will take that up, and so then I will just put the then I'll tighten up the clamps on the ends of the flex joint. Again, I'll be able to tell kind of how far I'm in here, make sure I'm in okay. My marks are every 1/2 inch, so that's about 1.5 inches in on the end, full 1.5 inches here, which is plenty. Both sides are in. I don't have the wire here holding up the pipe from the muffler, and they're all up on the collectors. Again, I think the key is to get the collector tightened up before you do anything with clamps here. All complete with the clamps on, and my O2 sensor in and everything. After putting those flexible connectors on, I was able to get the header collector sealed up real nice and good, but you could still hear an exhaust leak. So I'll show you what I did here to find out what it is. Here's a flexible connector that I put on, and if you remember, I had these clamps on here holding it on, one here and one in the front. Those clamps were leaking a little bit. I could see a telltale sign of exhaust coming out. So I'm like, well, maybe those are leaking. So I took the car up to local muffler shop, and I had them just weld these flexible connectors on right here. So there's no exhaust leaks there, but you could still hear an exhaust leak. With confidence that the collectors were sealed up, the next thing to focus on was the headers to the head, which these headers are just kind of a pain in the ass to take off, so I wanted to make sure that I actually did have a leak at the header. So I'm going to show you what I did to do this. Through suggestion of somebody else, what I did was I have a shop vac that has a vacuum inlet and then a blower outlet. So you can see this hose is running to the back of the car. The hose from the blower outlet of the vacuum I jammed up into my exhaust pipe and actually fits pretty tight, 2.5 inch exhaust. I have dual exhaust with a crossover, so then the exhaust pipe on the other side, I covered up the end of it with duct tape to seal it up. The theory here is to turn the vacuum on and create a positive pressure inside the exhaust system versus outside, and then spray around the header with some soapy water. So I made up a solution of soapy water. So the idea here is that you're pressurizing the exhaust system just enough, and if you spray the soapy water around the header, if you have a leak, it should bubble up. The vacuum's on, and I'm going to spray water around the top of the header. You can soak down, and I don't see really any bubbles coming up from the top. But we have to check the bottom also. I know it might be a little hard to see, but that's the front. Well, second cylinder back. Here's the center. And that's really hard to see. You can see a little bit of bubble there. So I have a leak on what would be the third cylinder back from the front passenger side. And then back here, hopefully you can see this. That's a big leak. Hold on, right there. That's a big leak. Summary, I just showed you the passenger side. I did the driver's side and then did my collectors also. Collectors, no bubbles whatsoever. Again, pretty confident that I had those sealed up. On the passenger side, that big leak on the back cylinder and a smaller leak on the second cylinder from the back. On the driver's side, it's the third cylinder back. A leak, not super big, but nonetheless, proof that I need to pull the headers off of this thing and get those exhaust leaks really fixed up. You can see on the rear cylinder where it was leaking, that's where the big bubbles were coming from that I had. And then it also looks like on the second cylinder back on the passenger side, there's maybe a leak there too. Driver's side, the only place I saw bubbles was the third cylinder from the back right there, and you can kind of see where it was leaking. As you've probably noticed, there's a lot of red gasket sealer on these headers. That's high temp Permatex gasket sealer, and I didn't use a gasket at all. I just used a sealer. The red gasket sealer and no gaskets was by recommendation of the dyno shop that I had this thing chassis dynoed on about 5 years ago or so. Get rid of the gaskets, just use red, high temp red gasket sealer, put a bead on it around each cylinder, let it just kind of get set up a little bit, I guess, not hard, and then bolt them straight down. He said they do that with all the headers that they install at their shop. I was skeptical for sure, but it worked really well and has for at least the past 5 years. But obviously it doesn't last forever, I guess. So I'm going to do it the same way. If I have problems, I'll go ahead and get gaskets and put them on, I guess. But it seemed to work fairly well, so I'm going to do the same this time. Gasket areas on the headers are all cleaned up. Again, used putty knife and piece of Scotch-Brite. It cleaned up pretty quick. I don't know, it took me 20 minutes maybe to do both of these. The head cleaned up nice. Took me 10 minutes, something like that. The header bolts I'm going to use are made by a company called Stage 8. They're a bit pricey, but if you have problems with header bolts backing out, these things will work for you. So the bolt special, you can see there's a groove on it there on the head. So how these things work is you put them in the header. Okay, so you got them bolted in, and then obviously these things would spin this way if they're going to try to back themselves out. Stage 8 comes with these tab things. They fit over the head of the bolt, and you put them on so that they lean against something that'll keep the bolt from turning. And then there's like a spring clip, and that goes into that groove. These things work awesome. Won't have problems with the bolts coming loose. Here's the gasketless sealer I'm going to use. Optimum Max Temp gasket maker by Permatex. It's number 27038. According to the directions for this, which is what I'm going to follow, you're supposed to put it on. Again, put the bead around, and then put the headers on, really with no wait time, and just finger tight the header bolts, and then in 1 hour come back and torque everything down. So I'm going to follow that step this time. That's what the directions say, and hopefully it'll work out good. One thing I forgot to mention before is the gasket surface. Make sure you clean it up with brake clean, both on the header and on the head of the motor, to make sure it's oil free. So this thing has been sitting here for about 20 minutes or so. I don't know, just thought it'd be good that it's not super tacky for putting this on. The trick is going to be to put this on without disturbing my beads too much until the header gets against the head. Also, make sure you use anti-sieze compound on the header bolts. That'll make your life way easier if you have to get these things out. So I'm going to follow the directions from Permatex, which is basically put these on finger tight and then let it sit for an hour, and then torque them down. Okay, everything's in place and hand tight as the instructions said. So now I'll wait the 1 hour and I'll torque everything down. From what I could find, torque specs is between 17 and 20 foot-pounds. It's been a little over an hour, so now it's time to torque them to 20 foot-pounds, working from the inside out. All the stage 8 anti-loosening fasteners are in place, and you can see them there. Those tabs that actually stop the rotation, those come flat, and then I put the bend in them to hook on the edge of the header and things like that. So those things work great. They work awesome. Plugs and wires are all back in on both sides. It goes pretty quick, 20-25 minutes at the most. I attribute that to two things. One, these headers, and go back to, I forget what brand these were, go back to my Header Palooza video, and I say what the brand is in there. Just, they give you really good plug access on all cylinders. Plus, I don't know if you have these or not, so here's my header socket. One, I ground down the end, make it a little thinner, and then I have these wobble extensions, which, you know, allows you to get some pretty good curves in. And then I have a 3/8 socket wrench with a pivoting head. My header collectors are reattached. I'm pretty lucky. Mine are relatively accessible. The passenger side is super accessible, and then the driver's side, not as accessible, but I don't have any complaints. I positioned the collectors and stuff a long time ago to make sure I could get access to all three of the bolts. And another thing that just makes it really good to seal off at the collector is, again, those flexible connectors that I put in before. Those are really useful if you're detaching and reattaching an exhaust system. For Permatex, that sealer had to sit for 24 hours before putting any heat to it. So this is actually the next day. We're here where I hooked up the, put in the plugs, hooked up the wires, and attached the header collectors. So now it's time to start it up. It's been 24 hours and see if I have exhaust leaks. Sounds good.